Number 25. Ben deposits $1,750 into each of his two savings accounts. Account A earns 2.75% annual simple interest. Account B earns 2.75% interest compound annually. Which amount is closest to the difference in the interest between the two accounts after 2 years? We've got two formulas going on here. We got a lot going on. Let's break this down a little bit. So we're going to put our terms that we know in our question at the top. We have time of the loan. We're looking at 2 years. We have a rate of 2.75% and a principal of $1,750. So when we look at our simple interest and compound interest formulas, they have the same components, but one is a little bit more complex than the other one, which would be compound interest. So we're going to work them both at the same time because we need to see what the difference in those interests were. So let's start with the principal. Principal is the amount of money you start with. Either it's a loan amount or a deposit amount. So P would be capital P. So let's plug this into both of our formulas. So we'll put 1,750 into both of our formulas. If we can get all our numbers in there, we can start to see our calculations going forward. The next thing we're going to look at, we'll look at our time. Time is easy. It's 2 years. So wherever it says T for time, we can plug our T into our formula. So you can see right where we put that. And when we put time, if you notice in compound interest, time is actually the exponential relationship over there. So it's going to be an exponent. That's going to be really important to realize. So now we have our time put in there. So now we got to place our rate in there. Now our rate is 2.75%, but we have to take it to the decimal form because 2.75 is standing on itself is 275%. We need to take it back to our decimal, and we can always do that by dividing by 100. So if we take 2.75% and divide by 100, and this is super important to get this, we'll have our decimal that we can plug into our formula. If you don't plug that in there the right way, it's going to mess everything up, and you'll have to basically start over. So let's start with our simple interest. We have all our numbers in there, and let's go ahead and multiply this out. If you got a calculator, it'd be easier to grab a calculator and do this. We'll plug these in. We'll do 1,750 times our decimal form of our percentage rate. From there, we get 48 and 125 thousandths times 2. And we'll multiply those together, and we get ourselves an interest of $96.25. So we have our simple interest. That was a little bit easier to work with. Now we go to the compound interest, which is a little bit trickier. We're going to have to do parentheses and exponents first. So we have to add the parentheses first following PEMDAS. So when we add those together, it's just adding 1 to our decimal form of our interest rate. And we'll just go ahead and simplify that. It's best to just write it down and simplify step by step. Now we got our parentheses out of there, so now we have to do our exponential relationships, which means we're going to have to do the exponents. So when we do the exponents, we're going to have to take that value times itself. So if you tab your calculator, you can place that value into your calculator, multiply it by itself, and when that happens, you'll get 1 and 55 thousandths. So now we just have one step left. It will be the multiplication here. And we get $1,847.57 for our compound interest. So after we have all of that, we have to figure out, trying to find the difference in the interest. And this is where it's a little tricky on this question. That's our amount of money plus our principal. So in order to find what the interest was, we actually have to subtract our principal from that to get our interest, which is probably the reason why this is a really difficult question for 8th graders, because that one extra step that you really have to kind of know what you're doing. We subtract those out, we get $97.57. So now we have our simple interest and our compound interest, and when we find the difference of those, we subtract those two. Obviously our compound interest is a little bit more. We're going to get $1.32. So which amount is the closest difference in the interest between the two accounts after 2 years? B, $1.32.